Princess Elena stood at the grand balcony of the royal palace, watching the massive crowd gathered in the courtyard below. Today was her 7th birthday, and thousands of people had come to celebrate with the royal family. The little girl wore a beautiful pink dress with golden ribbons, and a small tiara sparkled on her head. But something was different about Princess Elena that most people didn't know. The princess had been born unable to hear or speak. The royal doctors had tried everything, but Elena lived in a world of silence. However, this hadn't stopped her from being the most loved member of the royal family. She had learned to communicate through hand signs, and her bright smile could light up any room. As the celebration began, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella took their places beside their daughter. The crowd cheered loudly, waving flags and throwing flower petals into the air. Musicians played festive songs and dancers performed traditional dances. The whole kingdom was celebrating, but Elena couldn't hear any of it. Captain Marcus, the head of the royal guard, stood nearby watching everything carefully. He was a tall, strong man with kind eyes who had been protecting the royal family for 15 years. Marcus had a special connection with Princess Elena. When she was just 3 years old, he had started learning sign language so he could communicate with her. This had touched the hearts of the king and queen, and Elena had grown to trust Marcus completely. The princess looked out at the happy faces in the crowd. She loved seeing people smile and laugh, even though she couldn't hear their joy. Her parents had taught her that being different didn't make her less special. In fact, her unique way of seeing the world had made her more observant than most people. She noticed things that others missed. As the royal family waved to the crowd, Elena suddenly became very serious. Her playful expression changed, and she began looking around the courtyard with sharp, focused eyes. Something had caught her attention, something that the adults around her hadn't noticed yet. The little princess raised her small hands and began making quick, urgent signs. She was trying to tell Captain Marcus something important, but the music was so loud and the crowd so excited that no one was paying attention to her silent communication. Elena's movements became more frantic as she pointed toward a specific area of the crowd. Captain Marcus was greeting some important guests when he noticed Elena's unusual behavior from the corner of his eye. The princess was normally calm and graceful during public events, but now she looked worried and was signing frantically. Marcus immediately stopped what he was doing and turned his full attention to the little girl. Elena's hands moved rapidly as she signed to Marcus. She pointed toward the eastern side of the courtyard, where a group of men in dark clothes stood near the fountain. Her signs told Marcus that these men were acting strangely, different from the other happy celebration guests. They weren't smiling or enjoying the party like everyone else. The crowd continued to cheer and celebrate, completely unaware that their beloved little princess had spotted something suspicious. Elena's sharp eyes had noticed what trained adults had missed. The men near the fountain were watching the royal balcony too intently, and they kept checking something hidden in their coats. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as he understood Elena's signs. The princess was telling him that danger was approaching, and her innocent observation might be the key to preventing something terrible from happening during what should have been the happiest day of the year. Captain Marcus quickly knelt down beside Princess Elena, bringing himself to her eye level. His years of experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, his instincts were telling him to listen carefully to what the princess was trying to communicate. Elena's small hands continued to move in urgent signs, describing what she had observed. The princess explained that the men near the fountain had been watching the royal family for too long. She had noticed them because they weren't celebrating like the other guests. Instead of looking happy and excited, they seemed nervous and kept looking at their watches. Elena had also seen one of them reach inside his coat several times, touching something that made a metallic sound. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he processed Elena's observations. The little princess had incredible attention to detail, a skill that had developed because she relied so heavily on her vision to understand the world around her. While everyone else was distracted by the music and festivities, Elena had been watching the crowd with the sharp eyes of someone who notices everything. The captain looked toward the eastern fountain where Elena had pointed. He could see the group of 5 men dressed in dark clothing, standing apart from the celebrating families. They appeared to be in their 30s with serious expressions. That didn't match the joyful atmosphere of the birthday celebration. Marcus noticed that they kept glancing up at the royal balcony and whispering among themselves. Without wanting to cause panic, Marcus signed back to Elena, asking her to describe exactly what she had seen. The princess explained that one man had a strange bulge under his coat, and another kept checking something in his pocket that reflected sunlight. She had been watching them for several minutes, and their behavior was completely different from the hundreds of other guests who were genuinely enjoying the celebration. King Ferdinand noticed Marcus and Elena having an intense conversation in sign language. The king approached them, curious about what had captured their attention so completely. Marcus quickly stood up and moved closer to the king, speaking in a low voice so that only the royal family could hear him. Marcus explained Elena's observations to her father. The king's expression immediately became serious as he realized that his daughter might have spotted a real threat to their family's safety. King Ferdinand had always been amazed by Elena's ability to notice details that others missed, and he had learned to take her observations very seriously. Queen Isabella joined the conversation, and Marcus quietly shared Elena's concerns with her as well. The queen looked down at her brave little daughter with a mixture of pride and worry. Elena stood calmly beside them, continuing to watch the suspicious men while the adults decided what to do next. The captain knew he had to act quickly but carefully. If Elena was right and these men were planning something dangerous, any sudden movement by the guards might cause them to act immediately. Marcus needed to handle this situation without alarming the thousands of innocent people who had come to celebrate the princess's birthday. Marcus made a decision that would prove to be crucial. Instead of immediately surrounding the suspicious men with obvious security, he decided to use Elena's unique abilities to help gather more information. He asked the princess to keep watching the men and to sign to him if they did anything else unusual. Elena nodded seriously, understanding that she was helping to protect her family and all the people at the celebration. The little girl positioned herself where she could clearly see the men near the fountain, while appearing to simply enjoy the party with her parents. The royal guard captain then activated his hidden communication device and began quietly alerting selected members of his security team. He needed to position his guards strategically around the suspicious group without making it obvious that they had been discovered. The success of this operation would depend on careful planning and Elena's continued observations. Captain Marcus began implementing his security plan, while Elena continued her careful observation of the suspicious men. The princess had become an unofficial member of the security team, using her exceptional visual skills to monitor the potential threat. Her parents stayed close to her, ready to move quickly if necessary. Through his earpiece, Marcus quietly instructed his best guards to slowly move into position around the courtyard. He told them to blend in with the celebration crowd and avoid drawing attention to themselves. The guards were trained professionals who could move through crowds without being noticed, and they began surrounding the area near the fountain where the suspicious men were standing. Elena noticed that one of the men kept checking his watch and looking toward the clock tower in the center of town. She quickly signed this information to Marcus, who realized that the men might be waiting for a specific time to act. This detail made the situation even more urgent, as it suggested they had a planned timeline for whatever they were preparing to do. The little princess also observed that the men had positioned themselves near one of the main exits from the courtyard. This location would give them a quick escape route after completing whatever they had planned. Elena's sharp mind was putting together pieces of information that even experienced security professionals might have missed. As Marcus received Elena's additional observations, he began to understand the full scope of the potential threat. The men's positioning, their timing concerns, and their nervous behavior all pointed to a coordinated plan that could endanger not just the royal family, but also the thousands of innocent people attending the celebration. The captain made another crucial decision based on Elena's intelligence. He instructed his guards to quietly begin moving groups of families away from the area near the fountain, making it appear as though they were simply managing crowd flow for the celebration activities. This would reduce the number of people in danger if the situation escalated. Elena watched as the security team followed Marcus's instructions with professional precision. She felt proud that her observations were helping to protect everyone at the party. The princess had always felt different because of her hearing loss, but now she realized that her unique way of experiencing the world could be a valuable gift. One of the suspicious men suddenly reached into his coat and pulled out what appeared to be a communication device. Elena immediately signed this development to Marcus, who felt his pulse quicken. The man appeared to be receiving instructions from someone else, possibly someone not visible in the crowd. The princess noticed that after receiving the communication, the man nodded to his companions and they began to move slowly toward the area directly below the royal balcony. Their movement was subtle, but Elena's trained eye caught every detail of their repositioning. Marcus realized that the situation was escalating quickly. The men were no longer just watching and waiting. They were actively moving into position for whatever they had planned. The captain knew he needed to act soon, but he also needed to be strategic to avoid causing a panic that could result in people being injured in a crowd stampede. Elena continued her vigilant watch, noting that the men now appeared more confident and determined. Their nervous energy had been replaced by focused purpose, which made them even more dangerous. The princess signed rapidly to Marcus, describing how the men's body language had changed and how they were now moving with clear intent. The captain was amazed by Elena's ability to read people's behavior and emotions through their physical movements. Her silent world had made her incredibly skilled at understanding nonverbal communication, and this skill was proving invaluable in assessing the threat level. As the clock tower began to chime the hour, Elena noticed the men's heightened alertness. They were clearly waiting for something specific to happen, and the time was approaching quickly. The princess looked up at Marcus with urgent eyes, signing that whatever the men had planned was about to begin. The clock tower's chimes echoed across the courtyard as Elena watched the suspicious men make their final preparations. The princess could see them exchanging quick glances and subtle nods, clearly coordinating their actions for whatever they had planned. Her heart was beating fast, but she remained calm and focused, continuing to relay every detail to Captain Marcus through her precise sign language. Marcus had positioned his security team strategically throughout the crowd. His guards were now within striking distance of the suspicious men, but they remained hidden among the celebrating families. The captain knew that timing would be crucial in the next few minutes. Acting too early might allow some of the conspirators to escape, while waiting too long could put innocent lives at risk. Elena suddenly noticed something that made her blood run cold. One of the men had opened his dark coat slightly, revealing what appeared to be the handle of a weapon. The princess immediately signed this critical information to Marcus, her small hands moving with urgent precision. She could see the fear in the captain's eyes as he processed this development. The situation had just become exponentially more dangerous. Marcus quickly relayed Elena's observation to his security team through his hidden communication device. The guards needed to know they were dealing with armed individuals who posed a serious threat to everyone at the celebration. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella watched their daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Elena was handling this frightening situation with remarkable courage and maturity. The royal parents stayed close to their daughter while preparing to move quickly if Marcus gave them the signal to evacuate. Elena noticed that the leader of the suspicious group had just received another message on his communication device. After reading it, he signaled to his companions and they began moving more deliberately toward their target positions. The princess could see that their careful planning phase was over, and they were now beginning to execute their plan. Captain Marcus made a split-second decision that would determine the outcome of this dangerous situation. Rather than wait for the men to make their first move, he decided to act on Elena's intelligence and stop them before they could carry out their plan. The captain activated his emergency signal, alerting all security personnel to move into action immediately. The guards responded with lightning speed and professional coordination. They had been trained for exactly this type of situation, and Elena's detailed observations had given them a crucial advantage. The security team moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, approaching the suspicious men from multiple directions simultaneously. Elena watched in amazement as the security operation unfolded around her. The guards moved like a well-orchestrated dance, closing in on their targets without causing panic among the innocent celebration guests. The princess realized that her observations had helped prevent what could have been a terrible tragedy. The leader of the suspicious group suddenly noticed the approaching guards and reached for the weapon Elena had spotted under his coat. But Marcus had anticipated this reaction and his team was already in position to stop him. The captain shouted a command, and his guards immediately moved to apprehend all 5 men before they could draw their weapons or harm anyone. The crowd began to realize that something serious was happening when they saw the guards in action. However, Marcus had planned for this moment and had additional security personnel ready to manage crowd control and prevent panic. Announcements were quickly made asking people to remain calm and move in an orderly fashion to designated safe areas. Elena felt a surge of relief as she watched the suspicious men being safely apprehended by the royal guard. Her careful observations and Marcus's quick thinking had prevented disaster. The little princess had helped save not only her own family, but also the thousands of people who had come to celebrate her birthday. The weapons that Elena had spotted were quickly secured by the security team. Investigation would later reveal that the men had been planning to use the birthday celebration as cover for a serious crime against the royal family. Elena's sharp eyes and Marcus's trust in her observations had stopped them just in time. As the dust settled from the dramatic security operation, Captain Marcus knelt down beside Princess Elena once again. The brave little girl had remained calm throughout the entire incident, continuing to watch and provide information even as the dangerous situation unfolded around her. Marcus looked into Elena's eyes with deep respect and gratitude. The captain began signing to Elena, telling her how proud he was of her courage and how her observations had saved many lives. The princess smiled brightly, feeling happy that she had been able to help protect everyone at her birthday celebration. She signed back that she was glad Marcus had listened to her and trusted what she had seen. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella approached their daughter with tears of pride in their eyes. They had always known Elena was special, but today she had proven herself to be truly extraordinary. The king knelt down and hugged his daughter, telling her that she was the bravest princess in the entire kingdom. The royal family decided that the people deserved to know what had happened and how their princess had helped save the day. King Ferdinand stepped forward to address the crowd, which had been safely moved to secure areas of the courtyard. His voice carried across the gathering as he began to explain the events that had just taken place. The king told the assembled crowd about the suspicious men who had planned to cause harm during the celebration. He explained how Princess Elena, despite being unable to hear or speak in the traditional way, had used her exceptional observation skills to spot the danger that everyone else had missed. As the crowd listened to the king's explanation, murmurs of amazement began to spread through the gathering. People had always loved Princess Elena for her sweet nature and bright smile, but now they were learning about her incredible bravery and sharp intelligence. The princess had used her unique abilities to protect them all. Queen Isabella then stepped forward and asked Elena to show the crowd how she had communicated the danger to Captain Marcus. The princess stood confidently beside her mother and began demonstrating some of the sign language she had used during the crisis. Her small hands moved gracefully as she showed the crowd how she had described the suspicious men and their threatening behavior. The crowd watched in fascination as Elena demonstrated her communication skills. Many people had never seen sign language before, and they were impressed by how quickly and clearly the princess could convey complex information using only her hands. They began to understand that Elena's deafness hadn't limited her abilities, but had actually enhanced her other senses. Captain Marcus was asked to explain how Elena's observations had helped his security team respond effectively to the threat. The captain told the crowd about the princess's attention to detail and her ability to notice things that others missed. He described how her information had allowed his guards to position themselves strategically and prevent the dangerous situation from escalating. The crowd's reaction was nothing short of remarkable. Instead of viewing Elena's deafness as a disability, they now saw it as a unique strength that had saved their lives. People began to applaud, not just for the princess's heroism, but for her incredible abilities and the way she had turned her differences into advantages. Children in the crowd were particularly excited to see Princess Elena's sign language. Many of them began trying to copy her hand movements, eager to learn this fascinating new way of communicating. Parents watched with interest, realizing that there was much they could learn from the brave little princess. Elena looked out at the crowd with joy as she saw their positive reaction. For the first time in her life, she felt that people truly understood and appreciated her unique way of experiencing the world. The princess had always worried that others might see her as less capable because of her hearing loss, But now she knew that wasn't true. The celebration that had started as a simple birthday party had become something much more meaningful. Elena had not only helped prevent a tragedy, but had also shown everyone that being different could be a wonderful strength. The crowd's cheers and applause were not just for her heroism, but for the lesson she had taught them all about seeing abilities rather than disabilities. The crowd's response to Princess Elena's demonstration became increasingly emotional and powerful. As word spread throughout the gathering about how the young princess had saved them all, people began to understand the true magnitude of what had happened. The applause grew louder and more sustained, with families calling out words of gratitude and admiration for their brave little princess. Children in the crowd started asking their parents to teach them sign language so they could communicate with Princess Elena. Many families made immediate plans to learn this beautiful form of communication, wanting to show their respect for the princess and her unique abilities. The royal celebration had become an unexpected lesson in acceptance and understanding. Captain Marcus watched the crowd's reaction with deep satisfaction. He had always believed that Elena's deafness made her more observant and aware of her surroundings, and today had proven him absolutely right. The captain felt proud that his decision to learn sign language years ago had created the communication bridge that saved so many lives. A group of elderly people in the crowd began sharing stories about how they had watched Princess Elena grow up over the years. They spoke about her kindness, her intelligence, and her joyful spirit despite the challenges she faced. These stories helped everyone understand that Elena's heroism was not a surprise, but rather a reflection of the remarkable person she had always been. Local news reporters who had been covering the birthday celebration quickly realized they were witnessing a much more significant story. They began documenting the crowd's reaction and interviewing people about Princess Elena's heroic actions. The story of the deaf princess who saved her kingdom was about to spread far beyond the palace walls. Elena noticed that some people in the crowd were crying happy tears as they applauded. She could see the genuine emotion on their faces and understood that they were not just grateful for her help, but truly moved by her story. The princess felt a warm feeling in her heart as she realized how many people cared about her. Queen Isabella decided to make the moment even more special by inviting some children from the crowd to come up to the balcony and meet Princess Elena personally. Several brave young children stepped forward, excited for the chance to interact with their heroic princess. Elena was thrilled to meet them and began teaching them simple sign language phrases. The children learned quickly, and soon they were having basic conversations with Elena using hand signs. Their parents watched with amazement as their children communicated effortlessly with the princess, breaking down barriers that many adults thought were impossible to cross. The interaction showed everyone that differences in communication didn't have to create separation between people. One particularly touching moment occurred when a little boy who was also deaf was brought forward by his parents. Elena's face lit up with joy when she realized she had met someone who shared her experience. The two children began signing rapidly to each other, and their instant connection brought tears to many eyes in the crowd. The deaf boy's parents had been worried about their son feeling isolated and different, but seeing him communicate so naturally with Princess Elena gave them hope and pride. They realized that their child's deafness was not something to be ashamed of, but rather a unique characteristic that connected him to remarkable people like the princess. As more families came forward to meet Elena, it became clear that the princess had started something much bigger than preventing a single dangerous incident. She had begun a movement of understanding and acceptance that would change how people in the kingdom viewed differences and disabilities. Captain Marcus coordinated with the royal guard to ensure that the crew meet and greet session remained safe and organized. He was amazed by how naturally Elena interacted with each person who came to see her, making everyone feel welcome and valued regardless of their age or background. The birthday celebration that had begun with traditional festivities had transformed into a powerful demonstration of human connection and understanding. Elena had not only saved lives through her observational skills, but had also opened hearts and minds throughout the kingdom. The crowd's speechless amazement had evolved into vocal celebration of their extraordinary princess. As the sun began to set over the royal palace, the extraordinary birthday celebration was drawing to a close, but its impact would last forever. Princess Elena stood on the balcony, looking out at the crowd that had gathered to celebrate her 7th birthday and had stayed to honor her incredible heroism. The little girl who had started the day feeling different now felt more connected to her people than ever before. King Ferdinand announced to the crowd that in honor of Princess Elena's bravery and the lessons learned that day, the kingdom would establish new programs to teach sign language in schools and public buildings. The goal was to ensure that everyone in the kingdom could communicate with people who were deaf or hard of hearing, creating a more inclusive society for all. The crowd cheered enthusiastically at this announcement, with many people volunteering immediately to help with the new programs. Teachers, parents, and community leaders stepped forward to offer their support, eager to be part of the positive change that Elena had inspired. The princess's heroic actions had created a wave of social progress that would benefit countless people. Captain Marcus was officially commended by the king for his excellent leadership during the crisis and for his years of dedication to learning sign language to communicate with Princess Elena. The captain's decision to trust a 7-year-old girl's observations had prevented a tragedy, and his example inspired other security professionals to develop better relationships with the people they protected. The investigation into the apprehended men revealed that they had indeed been planning a serious attack during the birthday celebration. Elena's sharp observation skills had detected their preparations at exactly the right moment, preventing what could have been a devastating incident. The evidence confirmed that the little princess was truly a hero who had saved many lives. News of Princess Elena's story spread quickly beyond the kingdom's borders. Other countries began inviting Elena and her family to visit and share their experiences about inclusion and the abilities of people with disabilities. The princess became an international symbol of how differences could be strengths rather than limitations. Elena's birthday celebration had become legendary, remembered not just for the excitement of preventing danger, but for the beautiful lesson it taught about human potential and acceptance. Children throughout the kingdom began learning sign language as a regular part of their education, and Elena was no longer the only person who communicated in this way. The princess herself was changed by the experience in wonderful ways. She had discovered that her unique perspective and abilities were not just valuable to her family, but to her entire kingdom. Elena began working with Captain Marcus and other adults to help train security personnel in observation techniques, sharing the skills that had made her such an effective guardian that day. Years later, when Princess Elena grew up, she became known as one of the most beloved and effective leaders in the kingdom's history. Her childhood experience had taught her that true strength comes from understanding and utilizing everyone's unique abilities, and she ruled with wisdom and compassion that reflected these values. The Royal Guard implemented new training programs based on Elena's observational methods, making the kingdom safer for everyone. Captain Marcus eventually became the head of security for the entire region, and he always credited Princess Elena with teaching him the most important lessons of his career. The story of the little princess who gave the silent sign became a cherished tale told to children throughout the kingdom and beyond. It reminded everyone that heroes come in all forms, and that paying attention to those who might seem different could lead to discovering extraordinary abilities and wisdom. Elena's 7th birthday celebration had lasted only one day, but its impact lasted for generations. The kingdom became known throughout the world as a place where differences were celebrated and where everyone's unique contributions were valued. The little princess had used her silent signs to create a voice that would echo through history, proving that sometimes the most powerful communication comes not from words, but from understanding, courage, and an open heart.